The flames licked higher against the night sky as Marcus Thornton stumbled out of the burning building, his lungs burning and vision blurry. But he wasn't done. Not even close. Because somewhere in that inferno was 8-year-old Lily Bennett, the daughter of the man who had humiliated him in front of the entire company just hours earlier. The same man who now stood helplessly behind the police barricade, his arrogance replaced by naked terror as he watched the father he'd called spineless disappear back into the flames. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach already, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that will make you question what you think you know about courage, sacrifice, and redemption. This story changed me when I first heard it, and I promise it'll stay with you long after this video ends. 3 months earlier, Marcus Thornton had been barely keeping his head above water. At 36, he wasn't where he thought he'd be. His small apartment in the less desirable part of Westbridge housed just him and his 10-year-old daughter, Emma, after his wife Lisa had succumbed to cancer 2 years prior. The framed photo of the three of them at Emma's 7th birthday, the last one with Lisa, sat on his nightstand, the first thing he saw each morning and the last thing he looked at each night. "Dad, we're going to be late again," Emma called from the kitchen, where she was packing her own lunch, something no 10-year-old should have to do, Marcus thought with a familiar pang of guilt. "Coming, sweetheart," he called back, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Westbridge Financial wasn't his dream job, but as an accounts manager, it paid enough to cover rent, food, and Emma's after-school programs. And right now, that was all that mattered. Emma looked up as he entered the kitchen, her eyes, so much like her mother's, assessing him critically. "Your tie is crooked," she said, setting down her lunch box and moving to fix it. Marcus bent down, allowing his daughter's small hands to straighten the knot. There was something unbearably tender about the gesture that made his throat tighten. Emma had grown up too fast after Lisa died, taking on responsibilities no child should bear. "There," she said with satisfaction. "Now you look like a proper accounts manager." "Thank you, Assistant Manager Thornton," he replied with a small smile. "Ready for your math test today?" Emma nodded confidently. "I studied with Mrs. Patel yesterday while you were at your meeting." Mrs. Patel was their elderly neighbor who watched Emma when Marcus had to work late, which was happening with increasing frequency as Richard Bennett, the newly appointed CEO of Westbridge Financial, implemented what he called organizational restructuring. In reality, it meant longer hours, increased targets, and a perpetual cloud of anxiety hanging over every employee. The drive to Emma's school was filled with their usual morning ritual, Emma quizzing Marcus on vocabulary words for her upcoming spelling bee while he tried to focus on the road and not the impending budget meeting where he would have to present his department's figures to Bennett himself. "Perspicacious," Emma said, reading from her list. Having keen insight or understanding, Marcus replied automatically, his mind already in the boardroom. "Dad, you're not listening. That was the definition. I wanted you to use it in a sentence." Marcus glanced at his daughter, her brow furrowed in concentration, and felt a rush of love so powerful it momentarily displaced his anxiety. "Sorry, Em. Let me try again." Emma's perspicacious nature meant she always knew when her dad was distracted. She grinned. "Better." And true. Dropping her off at school, he bent to kiss the top of her head. "Good luck on your test. Mrs. Patel will pick you up, and I'll be home for dinner. Promise." Emma looked at him skeptically. "Even if Mr. Bennett makes everyone stay late again?" Even then, Marcus promised, though they both knew his promises weren't worth much these days when it came to work schedules. Still, he meant it this time. No budget meeting was going to keep him from having dinner with his daughter tonight. The Westbridge Financial headquarters loomed ahead, a gleaming glass monolith that seemed to swallow the morning sun. Marcus parked in his usual spot, one of the farthest from the entrance, reserved for middle management, and gathered his files for the meeting. Inside, the building hummed with nervous energy. Since Bennett had taken over 6 months ago, replacing the well-liked previous CEO who had retired, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. Gone were the casual Friday dress codes and the birthday celebrations in the break room. Bennett ran a tight ship, and rumor had it that he was just getting started with his cuts. "Morning, Marcus," called Diane from HR as they rode the elevator together. "Ready for the firing squad?" Marcus winced at her choice of words. "As ready as I'll ever be." "How bad do you think it'll be?" Diane lowered her voice, though they were alone in the elevator. "Word is he's looking to cut at least 15% across all departments. And he's starting with people he thinks lack, what did he call it? Aggressive business acumen." Marcus's stomach dropped. If there was one thing he didn't have, it was aggressive business acumen. He did his job thoroughly and efficiently, but he wasn't one to fight for promotions or thrust himself into the spotlight. After Lisa died, his priority had shifted entirely to providing stability for Emma, not climbing the corporate ladder. "Well," he said with forced lightness, "good thing my department's numbers are solid." Diane gave him a sympathetic look that said more than words could, and Marcus felt the weight of his responsibility to Emma grow heavier. He couldn't lose this job. Not now. The budget meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main conference room. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early to set up his presentation, his palms already damp with sweat. One by one, the other department heads filed in, each carrying the same air of tense anticipation. At precisely 10 a.m., Richard Bennett strode in, followed by his executive assistant and, surprisingly, a young girl about Emma's age who must have been his daughter. Marcus had heard Bennett was recently divorced and had custody of his daughter, but he'd never seen her at the office before. "Good morning," Bennett said briskly, not bothering with pleasantries. "This is my daughter, Lily. Her school is closed for teacher development, so she'll be observing today. I expect everyone to maintain professionalism." He turned to the girl. "Lily, sit there and work on your tablet." Silently. The girl nodded, her face a careful mask that Marcus recognized immediately. It was the same expression Emma wore when trying to be invisible to avoid criticism. His heart went out to her despite his growing anxiety about the meeting. "Let's begin," Bennett said, looking directly at Marcus. "Thornton, you're up first. Impress me." Marcus stood, forcing his shaking legs to support him as he moved to the front of the room. His presentation was solid. The accounts department had met all their targets and even found some cost-saving measures that wouldn't require layoffs. But as he spoke, Bennett's expression grew increasingly unimpressed. "So what you're telling me," Bennett interrupted halfway through, "is that you've aimed for the bare minimum and achieved exactly that?" Marcus blinked, thrown off rhythm. Our department has met all the targets set by the previous administration, yes." Bennett waved a dismissive hand. "Those targets were embarrassingly low. I was hoping to see some initiative, Thornton. Some fire in the belly." From the corner of his eye, Marcus saw Lily glance up from her tablet, her gaze darting between him and her father. "Sir, I believe in sustainable growth," Marcus said carefully. "Pushing too hard too quickly can lead to burnout and mistakes." Bennett's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "That's exactly the kind of mediocre thinking that's holding this company back. Tell me, Thornton, do you apply this same, cautious approach to everything in your life?" The question hung in the air, clearly rhetorical but stinging nonetheless. Marcus felt heat rise to his face. "I believe in doing things right," he said quietly. "Well, I believe in results," Bennett replied. "And frankly, I need people who aren't afraid to take risks." "Who aren't, what's the word I'm looking for?" He snapped his fingers as if searching for it. Yes. Cowards." The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus stood frozen, acutely aware of every pair of eyes on him, including the wide, uncomfortable ones of Bennett's daughter. "Sir, Save it, Thornton. We'll discuss your department's future privately. Sit down." Marcus returned to his seat, his ears ringing with humiliation. He barely heard the rest of the presentations, his mind cycling between anger, fear, and the crushing weight of potentially losing the job Emma depended on. When the meeting finally ended 2 excruciating hours later, Bennett stopped him at the door. "My office, Thornton. Now." Following the CEO down the hallway, Marcus rehearsed what he would say, how he would stand up for himself without crossing the line that would get him fired on the spot. But when they reached Bennett's office, the man's phone rang, and after checking the caller ID, he held up a hand to Marcus. "Wait here. This is important." He stepped into his office, closing the door behind him. Left alone in the reception area, Marcus found himself face to face with Lily, who was sitting in one of the visitor chairs, still working on her tablet. "Hi," she said quietly, looking up at him. "I'm sorry about my dad. He can be really mean sometimes." The simple, honest assessment from a child caught Marcus off guard. "It's okay. It's just work stuff." Lily shook her head, her eyes too knowing for someone so young. "No, it's not okay. He shouldn't call people names." Marcus felt a small smile tug at his lips despite everything. "You're right. It's not okay." "Are you going to get fired?" she asked bluntly. "I hope not," he answered honestly. "I have a daughter about your age. Her name is Emma. I need this job for her." Something shifted in Lily's expression, recognition, perhaps, or understanding. "My dad works all the time since Mom left. He says it's because he has to provide for me, but..." She trailed off, then looked down at her tablet. "I just wish he was home more." Before Marcus could respond, Bennett's door opened. "Lily, I need to go to an emergency meeting downtown. You'll stay with Janet." He nodded toward his executive assistant without really looking at his daughter. "Thornton, we'll have to reschedule." "But Dad," Lily started, "you said we would have lunch today." "Not now, Lily," Bennett cut her off. "Business emergency. You understand." Without waiting for a response, he turned to Marcus. "Don't think this means you're off the hook. I'll see you at the company dinner tonight." As Bennett rushed out, barking orders into his phone, Marcus watched Lily's face fall, saw her carefully school her features back into that neutral mask, and felt a flash of anger on her behalf. It was the same anger he felt toward himself whenever he broke a promise to Emma. "Hey," he said quietly, kneeling down to her eye level. "I'm sorry about your lunch." Lily shrugged with practiced indifference. "It's fine. It happens all the time." "Still not okay," Marcus echoed her earlier words, and was rewarded with a small, genuine smile. As he walked back to his office, Marcus made a decision. Whatever happened with his job, he was going to keep his promise to Emma tonight. No company dinner would keep him from having dinner with his daughter, Bennett's opinion of him be damned. At 5:30 p.m., Marcus packed up his desk and headed for the door, ignoring the surprised looks from colleagues who were settling in for another late night. "The dinner starts at 7, Marcus," his direct supervisor, Gerald, called out. "Bennett will notice if you're not there." "I made a promise to my daughter," Marcus replied simply. "I'll be back for the dinner, but I'm having dinner with Emma first." Gerald looked at him as if he'd lost his mind. "Your funeral, man." The drive to Mrs. Patel's apartment was the lightest Marcus had felt all day. There was something liberating about prioritizing what truly mattered, consequences be damned. Emma was doing homework at Mrs. Patel's kitchen table when he arrived, and her face lit up with genuine surprise when she saw him. "Dad! You're early." "I promised dinner, didn't I?" he said, gathering her into a hug that felt like coming home. "Thank you, Mrs. Patel. We won't keep you from your evening any longer." The elderly woman waved them off with a knowing smile. "Go, enjoy your dinner. Much more important than those big meetings, yes?" At their favorite diner, Emma chatted excitedly about her day, the math test she was sure she'd aced, the book she was reading, the science project she was planning. Marcus listened with full attention, asking questions and delighting in her animated responses. For those precious 45 minutes, there was no Bennett, no budget cuts, no humiliation, just him and Emma, the way it should be. "Dad," Emma said suddenly, stirring her milkshake thoughtfully, "are you happy at your job?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask?" She shrugged, too perceptive for her age. "You never talk about it anymore. And you look tired all the time." Marcus considered lying, then thought better of it. Emma deserved honesty. "It's been challenging lately. The new CEO has different expectations." "Do you like him?" "Not particularly," Marcus admitted with a small smile. "Then why do you work for him?" The simplicity of the question hit him hard. "Because I need to take care of you. To give you a good life." Emma's gaze was steady. "I already have a good life, Dad. I have you." In that moment, looking at his daughter, so wise, so resilient, Marcus felt a clarity he hadn't experienced in months. Whatever happened with Bennett tonight, he would find a way to make things work. For Emma. "I have to go back for a company dinner," he told her as they finished their meal. "Mrs. Patel said you can stay with her until I get back. It shouldn't be too late." Emma nodded understandingly. "Will your mean boss be there?" Marcus chuckled. "Yes, but don't worry about me. I can handle him." After dropping Emma back at Mrs. Patel's with a promise to pick her up by 10, Marcus drove to the Grand Westbridge Hotel where the company dinner was being held. He was 15 minutes late, but he couldn't bring himself to care. Some things were worth being late for. The hotel's grand ballroom was elegantly decorated, with the company's senior management and board members mingling over cocktails before dinner. Marcus slipped in quietly, nodding to colleagues as he made his way to his assigned table. "Bold move, showing up late," Diane whispered as he took the seat beside her. Bennett noticed. Sure enough, when Marcus glanced toward the head table, Bennett was staring directly at him, his expression cold with disapproval. Beside him sat Lily, looking uncomfortable in a formal dress, her tablet nowhere in sight. "I had dinner with my daughter," Marcus replied simply. "I promised her." Diane raised an eyebrow but said nothing more as the first course was served. Throughout the meal, Marcus could feel Bennett's eyes on him periodically, but he focused on his food and making polite conversation with his tablemates, refusing to be intimidated. After dinner came the speeches, boring, self-congratulatory affairs that had everyone checking their watches discreetly. Marcus was planning his exit strategy, calculating how soon he could leave without it being seen as a slight, when Bennett took the podium for the final address of the evening. "Westbridge Financial stands at a crossroads," Bennett began, his voice carrying confidently across the room. "We can continue as we have been, safe, predictable, mediocre, or we can embrace a new vision of excellence that requires courage, commitment, and sacrifice." His gaze swept the room, lingering pointedly on Marcus for a moment before moving on. "Some of you understand what true commitment looks like. Others." He paused for effect. "Others prioritize comfort over achievement. Personal matters over professional excellence." The room grew uncomfortably quiet as everyone recognized the thinly veiled criticism. Marcus sat very still, aware that many eyes were now on him. But Westbridge's future will be built by those willing to put the company first. Those who understand that greatness requires sacrifice. As Bennett continued his speech, Marcus noticed Lily shift uncomfortably in her chair, her eyes downcast. He wondered how many times she had heard some version of this speech, how many times she had been the sacrifice her father so readily made for his definition of greatness. When the speech finally concluded to polite applause, Marcus checked his watch. 9:30 p.m. He could leave now, pick up Emma, and still get her home at a decent hour. He was saying his goodbyes when a commotion near the entrance caught everyone's attention.